Good morning and welcome to Teach Me Bees, episode 400.
Yep. Been around for a while.
Feels like episode 400. Well, listen, we've got a very exciting show for you today. We are talking about fall beekeeping. I've got with me here Scott the Beekeeper, and we are talking about fall beekeeping. This is an important topic. This is where some beekeepers struggle and have some issues. So we're going to dive right in. And kind of the first thing to really talk about is, do you have a bee calendar?
Yeah, I guess so. I wouldn't say I have something like hanging on the wall, like
No, maybe you're
traditional
maybe
sense.
maybe due to your age you're using a computer.
Yep. I do have a written calendar, but I wouldn't call it as like my bee calendar per se. But anyways,
Is that what, when your wife tells you what to do?
no,
okay.
I just try and keep myself on track. I don't know. We'll get to bees in a second, but for those listening, perhaps you are a structure-oriented person, or perhaps not. I tend to work best in structure, but sometimes I don't like to write it down. And so it can be all up in my mind, and structure can get jumbled in the mind. So it's nice to put something down sometimes.
I agree. I keep everything in a calendar.
Yeah.
I actually live and die by my calendar. I'm kind of like Ron Burgundy in the sense of if Ron Burgundy sees it on the teleprompter, he's going to read it. If I see it on my calendar, I'm going to do it.
You know, I'd say that's a good thing. More times than not. That's
Absolutely.
a good philosophy.
Absolutely. It's
I
the only
hope-
way to
I
stay
hope-
organized.
I hope you out there have a calendar. Stay organized.
So
But
do we have a
fall.
beekeeping calendar?
yes, in short, I'll just start at the beginning of the year to make it easier.
The beginning of the year.
Beginning, we'll be in winter. Winter's the hardest time for the bees. That's when they are going to struggle the most, especially if your climate is cold or near Western Washington, wet, moist winters, moist fall and winter. Not great for the bees. That's where most bees will die is because of the moisture. Some will be from the cold. And then you go into spring, and spring is the new birth, if you will, the regeneration. That's when new hives will come about. You'll split, or if you didn't split, you might get a swarm. Swarms can happen in the summer as well, but if you do splitting in the spring, maybe early summer, that's the best time for that. Summer's peak beekeeping. That's when they're pollinating the most. If you're doing things like us, that's when you're going to be moving bees to and from farms, doing pollination stuff. End of summer, you're going to be extracting honey. And then as you transition from end of summer to fall, I'm going to say it August-ish, depending on your August, September, and now like we are in October. We're definitely in fall now. It's cold.
It is cold.
Yeah, it's gotten to the 40s at night. And so the fall for bees is preparation for the winter. And that brings you back to the winter, which is the hard season. So fall is really crucial to prepare your bees for the winter. And that's where we're at right now. And so we want to talk about fall beekeeping.
Fall beekeeping. This is really the prep time
Yep.
to
It's
keep your bees alive.
valuable time. Your bees did their work. They made their honey. They pollinated. Perhaps, depending on your location, there's some things out there they can still be pollinating. Most likely, that season is over with. And so your bees are going to be probably hungry. So you're going to want to feed them. That's what we're doing. We're feeding 2-to-1 sugar water. We're also putting pollen patties on our hives, especially hives that their pollen stores look to be of one color, one variety. Pollen patty helps supplement a little bit of the nutritional value that they need. And so then the pollen is more for the brood, the baby bees. And the bees that are being raised now, bees that were being raised over the last month and a half, are the bees. Those bees are raising bees now. So these bees will be your winter bees. So bees that are being raised in this particular moment are going to be the ones that live through the winter.
Because the bee lives for about 45 days.
In spring, summer, yes, but in winter, those bees stay alive a lot longer. They get
How
fatter.
long do they live?
I mean, hopefully for like 5 months, get through the whole winter.
Wow.
If they don't, your hive might die. So, it's starvation can be an issue. You have to deal with. You want to feed your bees, make sure they're doing well. We try to make sure there's a frame or two of honey along with sugar water. Put a pollen patty on if we want. Based on, let's see how they do. You don't want to overfeed so that they fill up every frame with sugar water, honey, that kind of mixture, because then they won't raise any brood. And then they'll die out on accident. They'll accidentally kill themselves. Bees are very intelligent, but at times I don't understand what they're doing. And or if you don't feed enough, your hive could potentially starve because maybe there's not enough forage out there for them naturally. So if you're not on top of feeding, you could accidentally starve your hive. And I don't have a great fear for that for our hives because we are trying to be on top of feeding. But if you have a really, really strong hive, they're going to go through that feed quicker. And so you just want to, you're playing a bit of a game where you want to feed the strong hives, but you also want to feed the weak hives to help them get stronger and be doing well. But then you can still at this point in the season, because the weather's still good enough, you could move brood into weaker hives to still boost them if you need to. So we're still doing a little bit of that. Hopefully your hives have kind of leveled out, but we are boosting a few if they need it. Mm-hmm. We want to keep them as strong as we can. So that's why fall beekeeping is really important. It's a really crucial time. And on top of that, mite levels are going to be at their highest while bee population comes down. So you may not notice mites in the spring or the summer, but mite population peaks probably around this time of the year, maybe within the last month. It's at its peak and will begin to come down while bee population has already come down. And so the bees that are in your hives are going to be dealing with mites right now, recently, and into the future. So that's why it's also important to treat. We've treated with some Formic Pro. We're treating with oxalic acid. So during the fall, I just recommend treating with oxalic acid. It's the best treatment against varroa when there's less brood in the hive. So as population is less, there's less brood. Oxalic acid is a great treatment to do. So fall beekeeping, that's awesome. Man, a lot's going on.
What are you doing to prevent hive loss?
Well, like I said, at this point in the year, the population has decreased. So you're boosting a hive if it needs a boost, putting in some brood. You're trying to feed. Those are kind of the biggest things. Another thing that is a battle for us is yellow jackets. This is kind of a end of August through probably October is yellow jackets are just out in force. It's like a bouncer.
So you're walking around with a little spray can, just hosing them down?
Getting dual spray cans. No, not quite. I have noticed in different sections of the apiary that there are yellow jackets more prominent, which I'm going to guess there are nests that I haven't been able to find that are more in those areas, probably in the ground, and I just haven't been able to locate them. So I've put on entrance reducers on all the hives. They've been on there for several weeks, some longer.
For anybody on the show, what is an entrance reducer that might not know?
Yeah. So your hive has an entrance. If you're a backyard beekeeper, your hive probably has the length of an entrance as the whole hive is an entrance. That front, wherever it's sitting, if you have it on a pallet, if you have it on like a wood stand, whatever, that is going to be the entrance. You're going to want to reduce that. What we do is we put a block of wood on it and cut it down. You can buy at Man Lake or Dedant, Better Bee, other places. You can buy a pre-cut entrance reducer, which will just sit on your board with a little hole that's like, I don't know, handful
Small.
of centimeters, an inch, less than 2 inches for sure. And that will be an entrance reducer. So that's where your bees come in and out of instead of the wide width of the hive. For us, our hives sit on pallets, and so their entrances are already reduced, generally speaking. They're 4 to 5 inches. So I cut those down to 2-ish or less inches. Just put a block of wood down there that cuts out the length of the hive. What that does is it gives less room for your bees to have to defend if they're under attack. If they're under attack by yellow jackets or fellow bees trying to rob them out, it's less that they have to defend.
Fellow bees trying to rob them out. That's interesting. How does that happen?
You know, it's like the schoolyard bully who wants to take your lunch money in 5th grade.
I love that guy.
And you know what? When you're a scrawny 3rd grader, there's not much you can do about it. You just got to give him your lunch money. But then if you show up with 12 3rd graders, he probably can't take all your lunch money. He might get one of you, but he's not getting all 12 of you. And you meet him in the hallway.
Interesting analogy.
Yeah, rather than the playground, you meet him in the hallway. You reduce the distance. You can take this guy. There's 12 of you. That would be similar to how the bees would be operating. Robbing.
There's so many places we could go with that.
There's a lot of things that
I don't know. Teach me bees and other cool stuff really comes to mind here.
Yeah,
Are we going to be able to stay on track? Are we going to be able to stay focused?
Teach me bees and rules for life in elementary school.
That's right. If you're in elementary school, this podcast could be for you. Sometimes. And so
99% of the time.
Yeah, we're mostly clean.
I was on another podcast just 2 days ago and somebody said the F word and the SH word multiple times.
That's inappropriate.
I was actually kind of shocked. That's the first time I thought, did I hear that right?
You got to put an E next to that one.
And I was like, all right, that's
something.
That's interesting. All right, so
but yeah, robbing happens.
So robbing happens when a hive that's next door decides they want to come in and take some honey. They want to take some brood. They want to take the queen.
They're probably not going to take the brood, but they are going to come in and try and take the food. They can take pollen, take honey. They may rob out the sugar water, the pollen patty, whatever. Basically, they're
bees
saying...
are a little gangster every once in a while.
Yeah, they're saying, we're stronger than you, and we're going to prove it. They're going to knock down your front door.
We do have Italian bees. I'm just saying, there's some Italian bees out there.
There are Italian bees. Italian bees are actually pretty docile, though. So
it's the Sicilian bees you got to watch out for.
You just never know. Maybe those Russian bees, a little KGB in them. We could go a lot of directions here, and we're just gonna stop.
Do we just torch that hive? I don't know. I don't know.
Not unless it's got American foul brood.
All right, so fellow bees, and what else? We've got some moths that like to try to get in the winter too, don't we?
Yeah, wax moths. So if your hive is weaker, which I've seen it in a couple of ours that are on the weaker end, is they won't branch out to the far reaches of the frames. They won't go to the ends of the frames. And so when you're inspecting, you might notice a wax moth in there, or just like some not quite cobwebs, but they look like cobwebs. Those are moths trying to make their home in there. And so those hives, you need to put brood in there. You need to boost their population. The trouble with that is if you put too much brood in there, some of the brood will probably die because of how cold it gets, and they won't be able to stay warm. So you have to find a balance of, I need to put a frame of brood in, hopefully that's close to emerging. And then once those emerge, you can maybe insert another frame of brood. So you kind of have to play the game a little bit.
So the bees are going to go after the wax moths. They'll
clean them out if they're strong enough. If it's on the far frame, away from like your feeder and where the brood nest is, they may not get to it. They just might say, hey, they're not bothering us. We're going to leave them alone. Not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. When your hive's strong enough, they'll kick them out. But you don't want your hive to get overwhelmed. So if you're in there, you see that, I would just clean it up myself, get them out of there. Yeah. So in some places, you might have to begin worrying about mice and other critters that want to have a warm spot to hide. So reducing your entrance does help that aspect too. Reduces the likelihood that a mouse or something else can get in. But if you're at like 2 boxes or even 3 boxes, there's definitely a room for a mice to sneak in and make a nest where the bees really aren't going to be. So I would definitely be at 2 or 1 boxes depending on your hive strength. If your hive's very strong, keep it at 2. 2 is great. If it's weaker, it's better to have it at 1 to let them fill up 1 box well rather than 2. It looks good having 2 boxes out there. You feel better about your hive. You're like, oh, it's a two box hive. That's great. But it's actually way better to be at 1 in good strength than it is weak in 2.
Have too much room.
Yeah, because then they can't properly cluster. They can't keep warm. They will eventually freeze and die.
And how warm do they like it in the hive?
93 to 96 degrees. I think 95 is kind of the sweet spot. So they are clustering, spinning a lot, trying to keep those temperatures. Day like today, it got down to 41 last night. It'll get up to 68, 69 today. They're going to be out flying. They're going to be looking for food, which is great. The more your bees can get out, the better, until it gets cold. Then that's kind of when winter shows up. You want your bees to be as calm, composed as possible, because if, let's just say, temperatures drop down into the 40s to 50s and they're not really out, and then all of a sudden once it spikes to 65, they're going out that day. They're going to be working hard. They've not been working very hard. They're going to burn off and go through a lot of the food that they had saved up. So it's good to have a consistent weather pattern than inconsistent. Kind of confuses the bees. They go through their food stores a lot more. So, yeah, fall beekeeping, important.
What's the number one thing that you do to prepare for winter? What's the most important thing to be prepared for winter in your mind?
Man, having a strong hive is the best thing you can do. So inserting brood, and hopefully you've been able to do that through August and September, is inserting brood, because at least here in Western Washington, that weather is going to be generally a lot better than October.
Yep.
But we've also had warm Octobers the last 2 years. So you can still be doing that for sure. Don't hear me saying, don't insert brood, don't do that. No, definitely put some brood in. Hopefully your hive is at a good place. So a strong hive is going to be the best thing to get through winter, especially if you're not moving your bees to a warmer climate or a better, warmer, less moist, etc. If you're keeping them here for the winter, a strong hive has a much higher chance of surviving.
What about Varroa treatments? When are you doing your Varroa treatments?
We did some treating in August, and we are doing oxalic acid treatments currently. And so throughout the fall, we're just basically continuously treating with oxalic acid.
Okay. So it's something you're constantly working on.
Yep.
Constantly trying to keep Varroa under control.
Yep. I've heard different thoughts or maybe reports. You want to hit every hive 3 times with oxalic acid. You want to hit every hive 6 times. There doesn't seem to be a consensus. You need to do it X amount of times to be sure. It's kind of, the more you do it, the better it is for the hive. So we're just trying to hit every hive as much as we can, in increments, not like every single day, every single hive is being hit. You might be overwhelming them. But if you got 2 months, hopefully you can hit every hive 3 to 4 times, every week and a half, 2 weeks, hit them with oxalic acid. That's just going to help as new bees emerge, new brood is capped over, because it's the cap brood that really doesn't get affected by the oxalic acid, but it's the open brood, the uncapped, that gets affected. So you kind of want to do it in repetition so that the bees are emerging without varroa. And then that's going to be the strongest for surviving winter. So treating against varroa and having food stores is the way to get your bees through winter. But you also want to have a good strength. So
what's the number one thing for a small backyard beekeeper or small scale beekeeper to do?
Yeah. Right now, I would say check your hives as much as you can, or the good weather days, take advantage of them.
So on good weather days, you want to open up your hives.
Yeah, like today, 68, 69. I'm going to open up as many hives as I can. Some I'm not super worried about. I may not even open them up today. But the ones who are a little bit weaker, we did do some requeening. I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, sometime. I'm going to be checking those hives as well, just to see how are you doing after a few weeks with your queen. They should be laying. There shouldn't be issues. But again, these are animals that have their own minds and their own willpower, and you can't control them. Just as ranchers with cattle or horses, goats, other animals, other livestock, you can do a lot of things for them, but sometimes they still do their own thing that you wish they had not done. So bees will be bees at the end of the day. Bees. And so, you can do as much, intervene as much as you can, try to help them as much as they can. But at the end of the day, they are animals and they will do animal things. So yeah, I would encourage, average, normal backyard beekeepers, small operation beekeepers, just get in as much as you can in this time, because your days of getting in are winding down.
For the fact checkers out there that we just called bees animals, are we going to get hit on that?
I don't think so.
A bee is classified as an animal. Are we going to be okay on that, Ralph?
You could probably put a QR code down, and
or do we need to
check.
Be classifying a bee as an insect?
I didn't think that there would be fact checking at this.
Oh, listen, there's fact checking.
Fact checking everywhere.
There's fact checking.
I would assume an insect is under the umbrella of it.
All right, we just wanted to clarify that.
To find out
for the very picky listeners, which we love. We love all listeners. So,
yeah,
if you're fact checking us,
listening.
that's cool. And listen, if you have a fact check, throw it in the notes in the comments of the show. And we're also here to learn and have a good time. So that's good.
We don't have every answer to every question,
but we can definitely make up an answer for every question.
We could make things up.
I have your answer.
Okay,
all right, Ralph, what is it?
Yes, an insect is an animal. Insects are arthropods, a group of animals with joined legs and an external skeleton.
See? Bees are animals.
I
feel confident.
What's that?
I saved a bee the other day.
Did you?
Yeah. Charlie and I, my son,
mm-hmm.
We were in the back patio.
2?
He's 1.5.
1.5.
I know he's a large child. He looks like he's 2. My son, Dave, who's not yet 8, wears the same size clothes as a 13-year-old. That's right. He wears his hockey clothes are the same size as a 13-year-old's hockey clothes. He wears a men's small and a shirt.
Wow.
That's right.
It's going to be a beast.
He is going to be a beast. And nothing makes me happier. And you know what? He works out in the boxing gym 4 days a week.
Wow.
This kid can do 250 sit-ups like you wouldn't believe. He's got a hard punch. This is like... He is awesome. Anyways.
Have you ever taken one of those punches?
Yeah.
There's a story there. We'll get to it
There's
sometime.
always a story there.
We'll get to it another time.
But we're on the backyard and we see a bee flipped upside down. He's hanging out in a puddle and he's moving his little leg super fast. He's trying to get over his black little beautiful insect that he is. And Charlie's there and he's, ooh, bee, oh, bee. So, you know, I say, okay, let's help the bee. So we take our car keys and we put them into the water and we flip the bee over and the bee crawls on the car keys and he doesn't know. So we take the car keys with the bee crawling on it and we set it on the countertop for the barbecue area and the bee's kind of crawling on it, and I pick up Charlie and I put him there and he's like, no, don't put me next to this bee. But I'm like, no, listen, it's okay, relax, the bee's okay. And he kind of gets comfortable, he's in there and we're looking at the bee, and then we're like, we're gonna, you know, take off. So we go down and we run a little errand over to the barn and we come back maybe 2 minutes later and the bee's gone. The bee flew off. We saved the bee's life.
Yeah. Got stuck in a puddle.
He got stuck in a puddle and we helped him get flipped back over. So that's what you can do to help save the bees. Listen, we got to bring this thing in for a close. We're right on time here. But just kind of looking forward, what are next steps? What are you thinking about in the bee calendar? What's kind of happening next couple of quarters?
Yeah, well, winter is coming.
Yes, that's a Game of Thrones line.
As
I love that
as
show.
many have said, winter is coming, and then eventually they say winter is here. I'm not going to say it yet because it's not true. So with winter approaching, we are taking hives to California. That's our plan. Much better climate, better environment for them. You know, there will be minimal hive loss and quicker hive regrowth. It'll just, you know, rather than waiting till April for hives to begin to grow again, January, February, they'll be beginning to surge again. So we're looking to go California. That's our plan. For people who are not able to do that, I would recommend feed and treat as much as you can right now.
Keep the moisture out.
Yep, keep the moisture out.
At all costs.
If you need to slightly tilt a hive so that the entrance is a little bit down, so that if moisture gets in, it drains out. That's something you can do just to prevent moisture. You might have to feed with granulated sugar, not sugar water, because the temperatures will begin to change.
No leaks in the roof.
Yeah, consider doing that. You might have to wrap your hive, insulate it some. So I would strongly encourage take those steps. If you're not sure what to do exactly, feel free to reach out, email us, info@honeyforhope.org. Watch some YouTube videos from people who are in your local area. You know, if you're in Nebraska, I may not be able to tell you what exactly you probably should do. I can probably give you an educated guess, but I don't know what time it begins to be freezing all the time in Nebraska. I have no idea. So know your local area exactly when the times begin to change. But winter is coming, and you got to get prepared for winter. So
there you go. That's another great episode of Teach Me Bees. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. Follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere it's social. Shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat and hear with you about what's going on with your bees and in the bee world. Follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Follow us anywhere. We got Scott the Beekeeper here. He's on LinkedIn. He's on Instagram. He's an Instagram guy.
Yeah.
So check him out on Instagram. Check out Honey for Hope. That's our business. We got Honey for Hope. Why do we call it Honey for Hope? Because we sell honey and we pollinate farms and we donate the profit to charity. So that's our mission. That's what we do. If you like the show, give us a like, give us a share. We'd love to see your comments in the comment box. Outside of that, have a great day.
See you soon.